started. Welcome everybody to today's web conference on the ACCED-I Collegiate Conference and Events Professional Certification Program, CCEP. For today's session, we are in a webinar format, so we ask that you submit any questions that you may have through the Q&A function, but you are able to chat with everyone as well through the chat function. We will be addressing questions as we can throughout. I'm happy to introduce Christina Paterino, CCEP, CMP, with the University of Colorado Boulder and chair of the CCEP Action Team. She will be monitoring those questions that come through the box and has permission to interrupt us along the way if it's a good spot for us to answer that question, or she might be answering them on the fly through typing or addressing all of those at the end. So don't worry, any questions, we will make sure we will get those addressed in one of those ways. But other than that, she'll kind of be behind the scenes on the presentation. So before we get started on letting you know everything about CCEP, we want to get to know a little bit about you while we let you know about ourselves. I'm Diana Hackenholtz. For those of you that do not know, I'm the Director of Meetings and Education for ACCED-I, and I have been with ACCED-I a little over 15 years now. I think actually I'm really close to my 16th year anniversary, which is really scary to think of. But prior to joining the ACCED-I team, I had a variety of positions in the hospitality industry, from working at a convention and visitors bureau to a golf resort, a hospitality management company, and a luxury hotel in downtown Denver. In my free time, I do love outdoor pursuits such as hiking and camping. And I just recently, last month, got a new puppy and looking forward to many adventures with him in the outdoors. And my co-presenter, I will turn it over to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Goodrich. I'm from East Stroudsburg University in Pennsylvania. I have been a member of ACCED-I for 20 years now, and I've had my CCEP probably 18 or 17 of those 20. I am honored to be presenting with Diana. She is an excellent resource, and she and I have worked together for the last 15 years on really making the CCEP program what it is, and really she and the action team are doing a great job of kind of keeping it moving forward in a positive manner. So I could throw out some similar fun activities that I like to do as well. I love to camp and go backpacking and go kayaking. So Diana and I have a plan. She's in Colorado, I'm in Pennsylvania. We are soon going to get together one of these days. So
yes, we are.
Anyway.
Thank you everyone for filling out the poll. It looks like we have the first three regions represented really well today. So thank you, Region 1, 2, and 3. We'll have to locate more of those 4 and 5ers to get on, or maybe they just didn't fill out the poll. And it looks like we have quite a few people already involved in some way with volunteerism. So thank you so much for all of you for doing that.
So today in our CCEP presentation, we're going to talk about the certification program requirements and how to, if you are interested in the program, how you basically apply for it, and what steps you have to take, what requirements there are from educational volunteer hours and some professional endeavors. We'll also talk about your mentor and your responsibilities as a mentee in order to complete your program. Selecting and writing professional essays, because there is a writing component to the whole program. We'll also touch on the board support, and then at the end we'll finish it off with some questions.
Great. So the first step towards your CCEP journey is, of course, applying. But before you even submit your CCEP application, we would say that you should just look onto the webpage and make sure you meet all those requirements before you go through the effort of putting in that application and paying the application fee. Those are fairly simple for you to get. You need at least 3 years of qualifying full-time experience in the conference and events field, preferably collegiate, but we will take into account any other relatable experience from previous positions you may have. Or you can have 2 years of qualifying full-time experience in addition to a bachelor's or master's degree in a relatable field. You also need to maintain an ACCED-I membership. If you meet all of these requirements, then you can fill out the application form, and that is located on the ACCED-I website. You will be asked to upload your current resume as well as your letter of application. And that letter of application should address 3 items. Your experience in the conference and events industry, which we should be able to see also in your resume, why you are interested in enrolling as a CCEP candidate, and what you hope to gain from the certification. And then when you put all that together, you submit that with your non-refundable application fee. Currently, that fee is $375.
So many years ago, when we were looking at the CCEP program and what, at one time everything needed a tagline. So we thought we would come up with a tagline. And the tagline we had is do it, write it, achieve it. So basically, again, as I mentioned, there's components such as volunteer hours, attending educational sessions and doing some professional endeavors, as well as and that's the do it part, in addition to the write it part, which is the workbook. And then if you do all of those, then it is basically you've achieved it. We used to have another part of the tagline, and I'll kind of just throw this in there because it's kind of fun. But we also, it was, you may be halfway there and didn't know it. And some of you may already be halfway there and didn't know it. If you've already been a member of ACCED-I for a number of years, you probably have done some volunteer hours. You also have probably attended educational sessions. If you even attended the annual conference recently, then that can be used towards your credits, towards your CCEP. As well, if you've ever done any professional endeavors such as presentations, etc., at annual conferences or educational forums and such like that. So again, you already may halfway be there. You already may halfway be there, but didn't know it. So, but most importantly, do it, write it, and certainly achieve it, which is a great accomplishment. And these, I think there's 4 people there. Yep, there's 4 people there that achieved that in, I think, 2019, if I'm not mistaken. I think
yes.
Like 2019. So.
Well, great. So you've applied, you've been accepted as a CCEP candidate. So now what can you expect? Well, you have 3 years to complete all of your requirements. However, you do not need to use that entire 3 years. We have had candidates definitely go through the program in less than a year's time. What Sarah said with being almost halfway there is very true. Your first 60 days as a CCEP candidate, you have the ability to go in and upload any of the requirements that you may have already achieved from the previous year. So if you're sitting here thinking, oh, I wish I would have applied before this year's annual conference, I have all the educational credits, you can apply today and those educational credits will still count towards your CCEP. So you have a full year of things that you may have completed already that qualify. So now getting into some of the specifics on what those requirements are. You are going to be required to attend a minimum of 12 hours of education. So that's in 3 years' time, we're averaging 4 hours a year that we're asking you to attend something that will further your education in the collegiate conference and events industry. You can earn all of these hours through in-person or virtual ACED-I events. This year's annual conference being a great example, since those were all recorded. You can get all 12 of those hours from that one event alone. We have also worked out, similar to what you see on a lot of our education, where ACED-I has our education CMP approved. We're a preferred provider. We also have done that. Unique Venues does a lot of education that we will approve in advance that can qualify for some of those credits. You can also earn credits from college level courses, other professional meetings related to the work of collegiate conference and events. We do have limits on the number of hours you can get, depending on what those outside activities are, but you can definitely earn all 12 of those with ACED-I. The caveat on the education, it does need to be a formal informational session. Items like the ACED-I business meeting and awards and recognition event, as well as some informal roundtable discussions, do not qualify towards that educational requirement. You will also need to complete 2 professional endeavors. We call these professional endeavors because they show that you as a candidate are also not only taking in knowledge, but sharing knowledge out to your peers in the industry. Professional endeavor options include presenting for ACED-I at the annual conference, at a regional event, at an educational forum. You can write an article for ACED-I Connect on an area you are passionate and knowledgeable on. When it's time for the ACED-I benchmarking survey, we will accept your completion of that survey and a submission of what you learned from your operation through that process. We will also accept articles published in other professional journals, or you can complete a CAS self-assessment for your department. We will talk a little bit more later on in the presentation on the association between the CCEP certification and the CAS organization. Of all of those items that I've mentioned, you can complete the same item for both of the professional endeavors. So you do not have to pick 2 from the list. If you love presenting and want to present twice, we are more than happy to accept 2 presentations for that requirement.
So another part of the do it is volunteer hours. Volunteer hours, you must complete 15 hours of service to ACED-I, which would be, you can do a virtual, be on site at a virtual or annual, let me try that again, on site or virtually at an annual conference, educational forum, or drive-in. You could also moderate an ACED-I peer discussions, serve on an action team, or if you already serve on an action team, or even any of those volunteer hours that some people have already are serving on, those can be your parts of your volunteer hours. And then assist with a special project, things like something that the ACED-I office would come up with, like putting together an ACED-I library through the website, different things like that. I do know that a lot of people do get their volunteer hours at annual conferences. In the past, when we were in person, it was easy to do because you could host a session or moderate a session. But right now, Diana will even reach out to people asking them to moderate sessions to get more volunteer hours. So certainly there's opportunities out there always. The last part, which I would think for most people, if you've heard about the CCEP program, is always the most daunting, but I would say do not be overwhelmed. Clearly, that's what's happened in this picture below or beside here. I must explain that picture. Back in 2005, CCEP program was actually on the verge of becoming extinct. The board basically gave a charge to Diana, I think, to say, you have to find a way to get this program back up and running and make it work. Because at the time there was no board support. There was probably maybe 10 or 12 people on that had certified at that time. And it really just was kind of loosey-goosey kind of a program. And I will tell you that we spent an entire weekend in Anderson University in Indiana. And we got, what happened was we got caught in a tornado watch, and that is why we were all under the table. So that was just kind of the funny to that whole thing. But that was the charge, and that really did push the program. And as you can see in that picture, Diana there is to the left. I'm probably like, I don't know, third from the right. And, everyone else, unfortunately, has either moved on or retired from their positions. But Margene Weiss, who is on the very right, she's a CCEP Emeritus member. She worked really hard at getting it to be where it is as well. So I should give kudos to Margene. But I would have to say, Diana and I and the rest of the action team, the action team has changed over the years, but we have worked, like I said, very hard to get it to where it is. So be thankful for what we have, because it's come a long ways. So, but anyway, back to the writing part of it. Most people do get overwhelmed with the writing part of it. As Diana mentioned, you have 3 years to complete the program, and some people have done it in less time than that, certainly even within less than a year or just over a year. But again, most people get overwhelmed with the writing part. If you don't like to write and you keep putting it off and keep putting it off and keep putting it off, it will basically become put off and you won't ever do it. So I always encourage people to, work on a question, usually about once a week, once a month. If you start off right away, it's only 15 questions. And some of the questions really don't take that long. So I would encourage you to, look at the questions and really hone in and get that part of the program done right away. Then that way, even if it does take you 3 years, it won't be that because of the workbook that's held you up. The workbook must be written in a professional manner. And they also have to meet certain criteria. There's a rubric that we follow that really makes it easy from a grading perspective and a writing perspective on how you need to follow it. So those things really help, and that's really what we've done to make the program that much better. After you complete all 15 workbook questions, you actually must submit a new question and answer it. So you write a new question and you answer it, and then that will actually get used in future workbooks. And we're very good, the action team is very good at looking at it probably every 3 to 4 years at the questions, because the CAS standards change. We'll talk about the CAS standards actually next, but the CAS standards change, and so we have to make sure we follow what the CAS standards want. So I guess that's a good segue into CAS standards for sure. But I would say don't ever be overwhelmed. Always work with your mentor, and we're gonna talk about that in a minute, but about getting the workbook done.
So CAS is the Council for the Advancement of Standards in Higher Education. And ACCED-I is one of about 40 or so other higher education associations out there that are members. And the standards that are developed are done by committee. Actually, the conference and event standards are in review right now. I don't know, many of you may have recalled seeing the call for volunteers to be on that committee. And I know they've been working very diligently the past few months in reviewing and changing and adapting and updating everything. So that will, of course, then translate to work again for the CCEP committee to look at the workbook and update it as well. But it was really a way for us to, get a lot of good backing and direction for those questions that we asked the candidates to answer, as they have been dedicated as standards that are important in the collegiate conference and events industry. So we decided to base our workbook on that, our grading rubric off of the standards, and has made it a more cohesive program for candidates going through the process.
So an example of an essay question looks something like this. You are the newly appointed director for your university's newest venture, a full-service conference and events service department. briefly outline the steps you will go through to determine your target markets and describe some basic marketing techniques. So from this, your response must be written from an industry-wide perspective, be reflective of research and knowledge beyond your own operation, and again, fulfill the CAS standards related to the program and services. So I think there's maybe 11 or 12 CAS standards, and there's 15 questions. So some questions you have to answer two options. But again, programs and services is one of those standards, and that you kind of answer this question from that perspective. It is, I think that sometimes people get a little overwhelmed, and every person answers the questions all very different. So don't think that there's any way that, you're doing it wrong. I would say it's very important to look at it from all avenues and reach out to some of your colleagues and get some information from them. And some of the questions even ask for that. I will say one thing about writing. There have been situations, so after you submit your workbook, it then goes to some graders, and the graders have to, evaluate each question that you've answered and ensure that you have met all the criteria within that rubric. There are times sometimes when that does not happen and someone doesn't meet all the requirements, you do get an opportunity to rewrite your workbook questions. So don't fret. You really can't fail. We just give you an opportunity to pass, and we want everyone to pass. That's the goal. We want you all to pass. It's very important for us to, have everyone pass. So know that there are situations where you do have to rewrite. And so I recommend with all of my mentees that have had to rewrite, and I've had a fair number, is to go through the comments that the graders give you and look at that and then just answer those comments. And then sometimes it's just a little bit more clarification. I often say it definitely needs to meet more of the industry-wide perspective. That's what usually kind of gets some people. And sometimes grammar, sometimes this and that, but really for the most part, I think it's how you are relating it to an industry-wide perspective. So keep that in mind.
Great. So now you've completed you've joined the program and you know what needs to be completed. How do you manage it? Well, CCEP is designed to be self-directed. You do get some automatic reminders from our office on where you're at, but really it is a process that you go through and determine what you need to be successful. If you know someone that you would like to have as your mentor, you let us know. If not, we provide you one. We also offer other opportunities for you to have discussions with CCEP committee members. You can always reach out to me for assistance, but there isn't any set way that we require anybody to go through their 3 years. We let that be a self-directed process. We do encourage everybody to submit activities as they are completed. As you all know, it's so easy for time to get away from you, and you're sitting there trying to remember what sessions you sat in at the annual conference 3 years ago. It's a lot harder to do when you can just take time when it's fresh in your mind and get it uploaded. So how does that look? How do you manage that? It's all through your ACED-I profile. So I will go through a quick example of how that looks. So when you're on the ACED-I homepage, you will need to sign in with your username and password. And once you're logged in, it will open up your profile home. This person is CCEP candidate, is the creative name I decided to give this person. On the right, under my profile, you will see the managed profile. And when you click on that, you will see a bunch of icons and different places you can go where you can update your bio information, view and pay any invoices or get any past receipts, see what you've registered for. But as a candidate, what you're looking for is down in the content and features section, and it is called professional development. So when you click on the professional development, this will show all of your activity for your certification. If you click on the certifications and program tab, it will give you a snapshot look. It'll show you that you are in the Collegiate Conference and Events Professional certification. Your status is still incomplete. It lists all of the credit types that you need to have done for within those 3 years. And it will let you know what's earned. At the top, you will see the total credits needed and the total earned, and then it will break down below. So you will see there's 1 credit for your 1 additional question and answer, and this candidate has not yet completed that, so it's at 0. One thing that will be pre-populated by me in the office is your expiration date. So you will have 3 years from your application acceptance to complete. So in this case, the candidate has until December 1st of this year to finish the program. You'll also see out of the 2 professional endeavors needed, there's 1 left. Only 1 hour completed of 15 volunteer hours needed and 8 hours of education out of the 12. The journal entries tab is where you would go to add a new submission to be considered towards your CCEP. And this is also where you can see everything that has been submitted by you and what that status is. So in this case, all of these items were approved, and that's why those numbers translated to the previous screen that we saw. When something is denied, you will see the status as denied, and there will also be a reference to why there was that denial. In this case, CCEP candidate requested an hour for attending the ACCED-I Awards and Recognition Ceremony this March. And as we mentioned, since that is an informal gathering and awards process through ACCED-I and not educationally based, that hour does not count towards your education for the CCEP. So the notation there is to refer to the page of the workbook that you receive as a candidate that gives all this information that we've been going over today, but also details that informational sessions such as business meetings, first timers welcome do not qualify. So then you as a candidate will understand why that was denied. As always, if you have further questions on that or are confused, you simply need to contact me and I'm happy to go into more detail on any of those. And it's not out of the question that I might make a mistake on something too and can reverse that. So when you want to add an entry, right here at the top is a green plus sign and it says add entry. So when you click on that, it will open up a pop-up box. So please make sure pop-ups are enabled on your computer. If they are not, this has caused problems for candidates in the past because this unfortunately does come up as a pop-up. Under certification and program, there are 2 options. As a new candidate, you will want the Collegiate Conference and Events Professional. The second comes into play once you have earned your CCEP and are recertifying those credentials. And then you choose your credit type. So if you want to submit educational hours, professional endeavor, your workbook, your volunteer hours. So in this case, we'll submit some volunteer hours. It will automatically default to today's entry date. And there are 2 options. You can, obviously I've typed some examples in before, where you can mention where you volunteered and then you put in how many hours. So you volunteered at a registration desk for ACCED-I's annual conference, and it's 1 credit hour. And then that is all you need to put in yourself. Now, in some cases, we do ask that candidates submit a little bit more information. In the case of educational hours, we ask that you explain what you learned, just so we get a sense that you actually were there, you did attend that session. And that little box can get, as you can see, even in that short sentence that's in there, it just keeps running on, and you can't see it unless you move your cursor around to see where you're at and what you've already written. And in many cases, you might get interrupted and don't finish the process. And the last thing you want to have to do is start all over. So it is recommended in some cases, especially if you want to submit a bunch of educational hours or a bunch of volunteer hours all at once and not have to put them in all individually as 1 credit. You can do an attachment. So you can put all of this into a Word document and then simply attach that file. And then you just choose whatever file it is that you want to put in there. And then in this case, let's say you had 8 volunteer hours of that you want to submit, and then you can just say see attachment, and then that can all be detailed in a much nicer format, a lot easier for you as well in terms of getting all the information needed and being able to see it in a better way. And then once you hit submit, I received notice that there has been a submission. It can take a few weeks for those to move into a status other than pending. But as long as your status is pending, it's still in the works, being reviewed, being checked on attendance, things like that. So there's 8 credits for volunteerism pending right now for this candidate. You're also able at any time to search your status by pending, denied, approved. You can also search by the type of credit. So if you're trying to remember, oh, did I submit that education or not? And you don't want to, go through a whole long list, you can at least narrow it down and just see all the educational hours you've already submitted and double check those so you make sure you don't send in a duplicate. And then you can also search by date and apply those filters. So in this case, I want to look at all denied educational hours, and then that will narrow it down to just the 1 option if you want to look at it that way. So that's kind of a quick review on how you manage your activities and know where you are throughout the program in terms of completion.
Thanks, Diana. There's a lot going on in there, but definitely I would do what Diana recommended. And as soon as you complete whatever educational, volunteer, or professional endeavors, put those in right away, because you definitely don't want to go back and try and remember it, because it is very hard. That is also another way that we actually know if you are really progressing with the program. From the perspective of if you've submitted any hours of any of those areas, then we know that you are definitely committed to completing the program. So that's also another way that we track the candidates and where they're at and where they are in their 3 years. Because if you haven't submitted anything and you're at year number 2.5 and you only have 6 months left, is it likely that you're going to finish? Probably not. But again, that's just our way of tracking it. I'm going to talk on something that is very, very near and dear to my heart, which is your mentor-mentee relationship. You, as Diana mentioned, you are assigned a mentor unless you have one, a CCEP that you know and you want them to be your mentor. And so what I would, you want to use them for advice and feedback. I always work with my mentees. I always let them know that on a monthly basis, I'll be reaching out to them. Usually it's like the 20th or 21st of every month. I send them an email saying, hey, how you doing? What's going on? Hope you're doing well. Have you started your questions yet? Just start working on a question. Those are the things that I try and do. And they also, reach out to me by sending me their questions, and I read their questions to see if they're on the right track. But it's really important to have a good relationship with your mentor. And if you don't have a good relationship with your mentor, and we've heard this countless times that people do not have good relationships, or that they've completed the program without even talking to their mentor, which is okay, at least as long as they completed the program. But our goal is to kind of, help guide you, give you some assistance, and just kind of be that cheerleader for you, if nothing else. So if you have a mentor and they are not reaching out to you, they haven't said anything, or you've reached out to them and they don't reach out to you, I will say, reach out to Diana ASAP. She will reach out and find you a new mentor right away. And she can usually kind of figure out who, what kind of person you need, and or who's available. I mean, we have lots of CCEP candidates, or excuse me, those that are certified, not candidates. Well, we have a lot of candidates too, but we also have a lot of certified CCEP who can become a mentor. Life gets in our way of being a good mentor and sometimes being a good mentee. If really it is our goal our goal as mentors to help you get your certification. So, it's good to have that good relationship with your mentor. And these are three of my mentees, so I had very good relationships with my mentees because I did reach out to them once a month. Additionally, I would see them at annual conferences, touch base with them, sit down with them, have discussions with them, have coffee, things to that nature. So especially if you already have a personal relationship with someone, you can, I know Christina often knows many of her mentees, and they just have really good relationships. So it's really important to keep that relationship going. So that is all I will say on that.
Great. So upon successful
Hey, you've achieved it.
Yes. You get recognition at the awards and recognition ceremony. But we know that happens once a year. So you are able to immediately begin using your CCEP credentials once you have received notice that you have successfully completed all aspects of the program. But your formal recognition will happen every March during the annual conference. So we always like to give a shout out to the current year's recipients, and they were recognized virtually this year. And some of the comments they had regarding earning their certification.
Mind you, two of them. Well, I don't know about Wendy, but I know about the one. She Mie Chun, she did a lot of her questions during the pandemic, which was a perfect opportunity for people to get their certification. And because of the pandemic still kind of happening, some jobs have changed and so forth. So if you have now availability in your job, that's a great opportunity to, bang it out, shall we say, and get it done in less than a year. So.
Great. Once you are done achieving your CCEP, like all certification, then there is a recertification aspect to it. So to maintain your designation, you recertify every 3 years, and we complete those requirements in education, professional endeavors, and volunteer service. That 3-year period will begin on April 1st of the year that you were recognized at the ACED-I annual conference, which is where you officially receive it in front of your peers. So again, it's the 12 educational hours, the 2 professional endeavors, and the 15 hours of volunteerism. You no longer have to write the workbook questions or do any of those items. It's just by going and showing your commitment to the industry and furthering your knowledge and imparting knowledge as well is what we look for in maintaining those credentials.
So how does the certification help you? Why would you even do it? So CCEP obviously is ACED-I's professional designation. As you know, other organizations have certifications like CMP, I think the meeting planners, I think they also have one. So this is ACCED-I's professional designation. It aligns conferences and events and professionals with the CAS standards of higher education. So that's a good thing because, again, it aligns both areas. It conveys achievement among your peers. I would say that's one of the better ones and one of the easiest ones. Again, because now we have that board support and we really come a long way with putting it all in one cohesive program. It really does. People really recognize you and appreciate it from the perspective of reaching out to you if you already have your CCEP. It assures professional credibility in higher education as a whole, even amongst your peers on your campus. It inspires high standard of professional conduct. It improves professional and leadership opportunities and offers opportunities for you to mentor others. So it is a great certification to have, and it is very helpful, at least from the perspective of seeing it as a whole. And again, people on campus, on your campuses, will appreciate you more because you have that certification.
Great. So that is the CCEP program from beginning to end, from submitting your application, how to manage it, what you need to do, what happens after you've achieved it. So now we'd like to open this up to anybody's questions. And always after this presentation, you can always contact me at the ACCED-I offices, my phone number, by email. Always happy to talk to anybody that might have further questions or concerns. So we will turn that presentation off and see if there's any questions. Thank you, Torres, for your shout out about the upcoming educational forums and us seeking proposals. It's a great example of how to obtain a professional endeavor.
Rachel had a question. When is the next application deadline? And I don't believe there's deadlines. You can do it whenever you want. So I would say today. You can do it today. No, we just encourage you to do it when it's available for you to do it, and there's no deadline.
Yep. Since it is a self-directed program and it's not based on a multiple choice test, but rather your research-based written answers to questions. We do accept applications all year round. So whenever it's a good time for you to join, you'll have 3 years from that date. So if you did put in your application today, May 18th, you would have until May 18th of 2024 to complete. So yeah, there is no specific timeline for those applications to come in.
Okay, there's another question. Are there any scholarship opportunities? Diana, I'll let you answer that.
No, currently we do not have any scholarship opportunities for that application fee. Not to say that might not change, but right now there isn't anything. And a big part of that is because we don't have those set application windows. All right, I don't see any other questions, but we are ending a little early. So I put into the chat a link to a Wonder Room for those of you that were at the annual conference. You experienced these a little bit, but it is a way for you to enable your camera, maybe chat with other people looking to do the CCEP. But I know Sarah, Christina, and I we'll jump into that room once we conclude this presentation. So if you want to have more of a discussion and a back and forth, or come up with any questions in the meantime, please meet us there. But before we go, we have one final polling question for you. So if you could please answer this one quick question before we end for the day, we would appreciate it. Otherwise, if we don't see you in the Wonder Room, thank you so very much for attending today's presentation and learning a little bit more about the CCEP and what it can do for you. And as always, never hesitate to reach out to me with anything else you may need. Thank you, everybody.